Hi guys, my name is Nikhil and you're watching Excel in Excel. This is episode 5 for our course Excel for Beginners, in which we'll be talking about a few interesting topics. But before I start, I just want to remind you that I have timestamps available for this video, so you can jump in and out whenever you feel like. Coming to today's episode, we'll be learning a little bit about conditional formatting, creating lists on Excel with drop downs, and also the slicer function. So without wasting any time, let's get into our first lesson for today, which is conditional formatting. You might be wondering where I got all of this data from. Actually, it's a very quick way to just enter random data in Excel if you just want to have a test sheet or something which is just for simulation purposes. There's a formula which is called random, and there's also a random between formula. So it allows you to choose the range where you want to enter your random data. So my bottom, for example, I want to keep it at 5,000, and the top, I want to keep it at say 20,000. So when I enter, there's a random number between 5 and 20,000 because that's the range I've chosen, right? And when I drag this, and when I drag it across all the columns, I have random data filled in. So it's dynamic. So if I say, for example, double click this and I press tab, everything changes. Yeah. So I don't want this to be dynamic. I want this to sort of stay. So all I have to do is copy and paste this. What I would ideally do is just copy and then paste values by going from here and then choosing values. But another trick that I just want to introduce, which is not part of this conditional formatting lesson, but I always try to copy and then I press Alt E together, then I press S and then V. So Alt E together gets me to one of the formula tabs here. Then when I press S, it takes me to paste special, and when I press V, it takes me to values. So it's a very quick thing. Alt E, SV, instead of using a mouse and going around. You could also choose Alt E S and then go. If you choose F, it comes to formula, for example. So you see these small underlines. I don't know if you can zoom in or not, but these small underlines are basically the references to the keyboard. So if I press V, I come to values. If I press F, I go to formulas. If I press C, then I go to comments and notes. But for now, I just want to paste the values which I've copied, and I press enter. And voila, here I have all the random numbers between 5 and 20,000. So conditional formatting is nothing but, as the name suggests, it's formatting based on different conditions, or it could also be formatting your cells for a better visual view where you can see the highs, lows, and so on. So if I just select maybe, this is just a sheet where I just thought to put some salesmen's names and the amount of sales they've done, for example. So if I just want to see if they're doing good or bad, I just go to this option here of conditional formatting under the home tab. And then I can have, data bars, for example. When I select them, it could be blue, green, red, whichever color you like. And then you would see the higher the number, the more filled up the box is compared to the selection that I have. Yeah. If I also go to color scales, it's going to give me these colors, green being the highest, for example, and red being the lowest. So I know this Angela Howard is a pretty bad performer, right? And I know Bella Gibson is probably the topmost and the best. Without going through the list, I just see it as green and red. So this is when you could use this conditional formatting option. Also, there are some advanced places where you could create a new rule. You could go in this bar and create a two-tone rule and so on. You could also put in formulas for these cells and have a specific cell being highlighted based on if your formula is or condition is true or not. I think I'll leave that for now. It's a little bit advanced, but you get the gist of it. This is what conditional formatting does. Yeah. So if I choose something like this and I like it, I could keep it. I could also go back and I could clear the rules from the selected cells or the entire sheet. So that's how you could maybe play around with conditional formatting. Another option is if I have say for example these student names and how much they've scored in different tests out of 100, and I want to see who's probably have got like really good marks, for example, in all these tests combined. I could use conditional formatting and I could just maybe choose greater than, yeah. So I want to see who scored greater than 95 and fill it with green. And then I don't want green fill with dark green text. I want yellow fill. No, maybe this is fine. Red fill with red text. It's at least visible. So I know these are the highest marks which the students have got. Um, and I could also maybe select something. Let me delete this first. I would just go and clear the rules, and I want to see who are my top 10, for example, here. So I have my top 10 coming up just by selecting that simple option. And once you start using this, you probably discover more and more options which could be useful based on your need. But these are some pretty cool options for conditional formatting. And now I want to talk about our second lesson, which is about creating lists on Excel. So say, for example, you're keeping a party and then you have a list of people, and then you want them to RSVP, and then you want to keep a track, for example, right? And you just want to have three options for RSVP: yes, no, or maybe. They don't, you don't want them to sort of fill up, or you don't want yourself to fill up more than those options. What you could do is you could type yes, you could type yes. See, I'm making mistakes already, and this is why the list is useful. And then I could write maybe, and so on. But what if I want a drop down list, here, instead of typing these options? It's actually an easy way to do so. So what I would do is I would just maybe go to data. I would select the cell. I would go to data, and then it should be bigger maybe in your PCs, but my icon is really small here. And I would click data validation. And when I go here, I select list, and then I could maybe just enter my options here as yes, no, comma, maybe. So these are the three options I want. And then you see, this is what happens. Yes. And then obviously I can't see this in the next cell, so I would want to copy this and paste. So the list sort of gets pasted. Um, Also, another way to add your lists would be, let me just remove this. So there's no, yeah, the cell is empty now. So there's also a way that you could enter the list by selecting these options which I have as the source. So I would basically want to create a list, and then I want to use the source as these three options here. And then you can also choose these two options: ignore blank, and in cell dropdown is fine, but ignore blank is when someone can actually leave it blank. And if you uncheck this, which means that they cannot leave the cell blank, you have to enter an option yes, no, or maybe, for example, in that case. So I actually entered that in the wrong cell, but I would just maybe want to go here, and I want to create a list again. My source is this, and I press OK. And you see my options pop up here, and I would just want to copy and paste this again, and then I have this option in each of the cells. What else? I mean, this is sort of dynamic, right? So if I just want to go here and check again, so these are my cells that are locked, H5, H7, yeah. So if I sort of move these below, what happens is these will still sort of be captured because they're logged in. So if you remove these dollar signs, what happens is it's going to become dynamic. So always make sure that the lists that you select are logged in, so that whenever you move them, they still remain, the conditions still remain for keeping that list in this case, yeah. So yeah, that was our lesson for creating lists on Excel. The last thing I want to talk about is the slicer option. The slicer option is nothing but your filter option on steroids in a way. So it just makes you do a few cooler things a little quickly and visually. But before you start working on a slicer, you just have to make sure that your data that you have is in a table form. And I will just show you now how do we translate this into a data. I would just select all of this together, and I would go to insert and press table. And Excel is pretty smart. It's just going to take your data automatically, even if you don't select the range sometimes. And you could also choose my table as headers. So the first row that we have is not going to be part of the data inputs that we are going to consider. When I press OK, this is the table form that we get. Yeah, I'm just going to change. I want a text to be black, and this as well, black. Great. So what slicer is going to be doing for you is if I just select this and then I go to my, where is slicer? Slicer is in my insert slicer. There we go. So when I choose slicer, it's going to give me what filters do I want to choose. So I would maybe want to choose something like location, and I want to choose department. And I have these two options where you have these two small toggle boxes that pop up. And then I could change the colors of these. This could be a different color. This would be a different color. And if I just want to see, what the location is of my employees, in some way, it's okay. Canada, there are only two of them. And I can't choose, any of these because both of them only work in sales. If I want to select Mexico, I have just one person in Mexico. When I select US, I have a few people working in the US with different incomes, for example. But when I choose IT, it filters my data even further. And this could be useful when you're trying to just maybe have a live presentation going on, and then people actually want to have a look at a few specific views or drill down into details. This is when I would use a slicer option. I don't like to use this very frequently because I also work on pivot tables and so on. But that's something I will cover later. But this is a cool option, maybe just for you to also easily pick up. It's nothing complicated. It's just your data being presented in a nice way. So yeah, that's it for today. I hope in today's episode where we spoke about conditional formatting, the slicer, and how do we create lists in Excel using drop downs and so on was useful. If you have any comments on the video that you just saw, don't be shy. Feel free to drop a comment. And if you like the content that you're seeing, I would love for you to subscribe and also just give me give me some feedback on what else you want to see on Excel, because I have a few things planned after I go through the basic course of Excel for beginners. Until then, this is me checking out. I will hopefully see you very soon.